Okay, so talking about prompting and some other things that we should know about it. Just like with reinforcement and how important it is to thin out reinforcement as soon as possible so that our individuals don't become dependent on those rewards or reinforcers in order to engage in behavior. We need to make sure that we do the same thing with prompting. Um, but also, when teaching new skills, we want to make sure that we reinforce correct responding and we try to encourage making the least amount of errors as possible. Okay? And it's kind of similar to how when we start with a new skill, we want to make sure that we provide a dense or a high level of reinforcement to really increase their motivation, right? Do those establishing operations, increase the value, and increase our behavioral momentum. So sometimes what we'll use, or actually a lot of the time what we'll use, is what we call errorless learning or errorless teaching strategies. Errorless teaching is an instructional strategy that ensures children always respond correctly. So, for example, if this is kind of the first time I'm asking the student, get the marker, I'm going to not give them too much time to think about it, but instead I'm going to say get the marker again and immediately guide them to get the marker and pick it up. I'm going to say good job, that is getting the marker, awesome, okay? So I'm not letting them make an error. And we'll get into this more when we do our DTI because it's definitely part of that prompting procedure. But I wanted to bring that into our prompting piece here while we're talking about our hierarchy so that you know when we use errorless teaching, okay, a lot of the time we will not be working through this triangle. Instead, we'll really concentrate on using full physical sooner than later so that our individual doesn't have the opportunity to make a mistake, okay? And then obviously we work out to encourage that independence, but especially at the beginning when we're teaching a new skill, it's pretty crucial that we use errorless teaching strategies. Okay, so let's go back to our different types of prompting. So we've got our prompting guidelines here, our hierarchy, right? There are some other things that we can use when we prompt. There's something called positional awareness. Positional awareness is when you put out an item specifically so that the student or the person you're working with is more likely to have a correct response, okay? So for example, if I had two things out in front of the student and I said, touch marker, 50-50 shot, right? They get it right. But positional awareness, I'm going to increase the likelihood, better their chances that they get it correctly by putting the marker closer to them. Touch the marker, okay? It's closer to them. They're much more likely to choose this one, okay? So positional awareness can be used to help increase their chances of making a correct response. Positional awareness, however, also comes into play when you're doing DTI because, or any type of teaching. Remember, there's always going to be a dominant side. And sometimes with our kids with disabilities, that really takes hold and they'll almost always choose one side over the other. So that's why when we're doing DTI, and we'll talk about it more later, we do a lot of random rotation where you're always switching up where items are within the area so that they can't rely on that positional awareness to be able to make a correct response or incorrect response, okay? All right. So another form of prompting we use is what we call stimulus shaping. So it involves the gradual altering of the form of a stimuli or an item to eventually resemble what it is we're looking for. So initially the presentation of the item does not resemble the stimulus, but over time, stimulus is modified to resemble exactly what it is we're looking for. And I know that sounds complicated, so let me give you an example. So if we want to teach the letter S, okay, we've got our letter S up here. I'm going to what is it? It's a snake, okay? S, snake. Stimulus, shaping. I'm changing what our stimulus looks like in order to increase the likelihood that our client is going to gain the concept that this shape is an S, right? Maybe they like snakes. S, snakes makes sound, perfect, okay? You see this all the time in elementary schools. That's exactly what they're doing. They're doing stimulus shaping, okay, to make it more concrete and more likely that an individual will learn something because they're familiar with it and they're encouraged by it, motivated, right? That establishing effect or establishing operation or evocative effect. So over time, what we would do is we would start to take away all of these things that don't make this an S. So maybe that would be the second step. What is it? S, snake. Good. Okay. All the way till we take away this. All right. And now it's an S all the way till probably we take away this outside shape so it no longer looks like a snake, but it is literally just the letter S. And they still remember it is an S for snake. Okay. So that would be stimulus shaping.